everyone, I'm Bree. Welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Today we're going to learn how to make spaghetti. It's one of the easiest, simplest meals that I know how to make, and it's quick. I need something that's quick for convenience in my life. I live an hour away from where I work, so convenience is key to us eating home-cooked meals and saving money instead of eating out. So the first thing we're going to need to do today to make spaghetti is get a pot that you can fit spaghetti noodles, if you actually have spaghetti noodles on hand, but you can make spaghetti with almost any kind of pasta. I filled my pot with filtered clean water, and all I'm going to do is add some salt. I was always taught, put a little bit of salt. That helps with getting the water to the boiling temperature, and then it also boils hotter, thus cooking your food a little bit faster. So if you want to do any research on that, please feel free. It's just what I do. If you are on a low sodium diet or sensitive to salt, you can always omit it. It's not going to make a huge difference. Okay, so now that we have salt in our water and our pot is on the stove, I'm going to go ahead and get the stove on. And we're just going to put it on high because we need this water to be at a boil before we put our pasta in. The trick to cooking pasta, water needs to be boiling before we put the pasta in. So now we're going to wait for that to boil while we get other things going. I have another pan over here that we are going to use to brown our meat, okay? And you can use whatever meat you want. I know some people who like to put ground chicken in their spaghetti. I know some people who like to put ground turkey in their spaghetti. I know some people who like to omit meat altogether. Some people like to put ground sausage. Really anything that suits your fancy. Today we have ground beef, and that's what I'm going to use. So we're going to get our pan heating up as well. We got our package cut. I like to have my ingredients kind of ready. It doesn't always work that way. I tend to be rather forgetful and scattered and usually not this organized. But today we got organized, and that really helps. Our meat, I believe this meat is like 93% lean. It's a pretty lean beef that we have. So I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil. Again, you can use any oil of your preference. We just happen to have olive oil, quick and ready access, and so that's what I'm going to use. We're going to wait for this pan to get hot. We want this pan to be a little hot before we add our ground beef to it. While we're waiting for that to heat up and while we're waiting for this to boil, I'm going to go ahead and grab our sauce. Some people like to make their own sauce. I've made my sauce a couple of times. It's not convenient for me right now, so I've got some extra sauce that I bought from Costco. I used half of it the last time I made spaghetti, and I popped it in the freezer, pulled it out, let it thaw. We've got more spaghetti sauce. So now, this is the spaghetti sauce that I prefer to use personally. Based off of the ingredient list. It's kind of been my thing lately, is just looking at the ingredients that we are consuming on a regular basis. Okay, so my pan is decently warm. We're going to go ahead and add our ground beef. Here we go. You can hear that little bit of sizzle. The pan was definitely getting to temperature, and that's great. Sorry if you heard that. I have a cat, and he will jump on the counter if he wants. He's not supposed to be on the counter. That is, in fact, what he does, and so it's a constant struggle, especially when I'm cooking, because he wants to be in it. It smells good, obviously. He has to be a part of it in his eyes. So I'm going to use a wooden spoon, simply because the pan that I decided to brown my ground beef in is an enameled non-stick pan, and I don't want to scratch it. So I'm going to use a wooden spoon. You can use a plastic spoon. If you're using a different pan like cast iron or stainless steel, you can also use a metal spoon and you're not going to do any damage to your pan. Well, my ground beef is still just a little bit frozen, which is fine. The cooking process is going to thaw it out the rest of the way. I pulled this out last night to thaw, and apparently it hasn't thawed all the way. It's not a big deal. It's not going to change anything. We're going to do just fine. So while we are waiting for this to keep browning in the water to boil, we're going to get our seasonings out. One of the biggest mistakes that I made when I started cooking was failing to season the ground beef that I was putting into my spaghetti. It makes a world of difference. The food will just be pretty bland if you forget your seasonings, so I highly recommend you season it. When I had an Italian seasoning homemade, or already made, I bought it store-bought already, I would just throw some Italian seasoning and some salt and pepper, but because I don't have that, I'm just going to throw a traditional Italian style type of seasoning you cannot go wrong with, since we're technically making an Italian style dish. So we're going to grab some salt, I'm going to grab some garlic powder, some pepper, I'm going to grab some oregano, I'm going to grab some basil. It actually looks like I'm out of that basil, so I will have to grab another one. A neighbor gave me basil last year. Now I need to figure out which one I want. Let's see. There's a couple different kinds of basil. So, if any of you are 80s or 90s kids, you'll recognize these. This is Tupperware that I inherited from my mom. Was pretty excited to inherit it, but this is proving to be pretty difficult to open. So we're just going to grab, there we go, just going to grab a spoon and fry it open. Nope. So we're going to go, I believe, with this one. I believe this is a normal, regular basil. I'm going to grab some onion powder. I don't have any onions on hand right now, so I'm going to throw onion powder in here. It'll work just fine. Same with garlic. If you have fresh garlic on hand, which again, I don't have fresh garlic on hand, you can totally chop and mince some garlic, chop some onions, and chop it into here, and it'll be delicious. But if all you have are seasonings and spices, you can totally use your seasonings and spices. It's not going to harm the dish at all. Okay, let's see what else I need. Rosemary is a standard Italian addition to the Italian seasoning. We got thyme and a little bit of sage, I believe, gets added. And I believe that's about it. That should satisfy the flavor profile that we are looking for. There's a good chance I'm missing something, but again, it'll work. It'll turn out just fine. The water is almost to a rolling boil, and that rolling boil is what you want for when you add your pasta in. Okay, so let's look at the directions on our pasta, and it says bring water to a rapid boil and cook for 9 to 11 minutes. Again, you can cook until it's at the tenderness that you like. Some people like it more al dente, which is just a little bit of toughness. Some people like it incredibly soft where it kind of just falls apart in your mouth. Total preference. We like it on the more al dente side, especially because our spaghetti we like to wait or save it for lunches the next day if there's any leftovers. And spaghetti is always, in my opinion, far more delicious the second day because the pasta has absorbed some of that sauce and it just gives it a whole nother texture and flavor profile. It's 6:08 and we're gonna let that go for about 9 minutes. We'll test the pasta too. We're not just gonna solely wait on time. Here for the ground beef, I'm just trying to break up any of the larger clumps, and this is applicable to any of the ground meats that you choose to use in your spaghetti. Is you just want to break up those clumps unless that's your style. We like to have a little bit of meat in every bite, basically kind of more like a meat sauce on top of spaghetti noodles. Whereas if the chunks of ground beef is what you like, have at it. So the great thing about cooking is you, to an extent, especially a meal like this, you can kind of cook it however you feel necessary and whatever suits your fancy. If you want big chunks of meat in there, leave big chunks of meat in there. If you're like us and you want a piece of meat in every bite, we like to break up those clumps and let them go. So now my meat is mostly cooked through, and it's at this point that I want to start adding my seasonings. I really don't measure anymore. I just kind of go to taste, and the best way to do that is once you've seasoned things, definitely season things on the conservative side, and grab a spoon and put your food on the spoon and give it a taste and see if there's anything that you would like more of. You can always add more seasoning to your food, but taking the seasoning out is a challenge. I actually haven't mastered that yet. I have no idea how you would do it. You probably have to rinse the ground beef off, which is just a hassle. So I would say be a little conservative on the seasonings that you apply. Give it a taste test and add more if necessary. And then keep repeating until you get to the desired taste. So we're going to add some pepper. We're going to add some onion powder. It smells delicious. We're going to add some garlic powder. We like garlic in this house, so I go a little generous on the garlic powder. You do not have to do that if you don't want to. Okay, we're going to add some basil. Basil and oregano, you don't need a whole lot of. They're pretty strong herbs on their own. So really you just need probably a quarter to a half of a teaspoon, and they're going to do wonders to the flavor profile of your dish. Same with rosemary. Rosemary, a little goes a long way, and thyme. Just a little bit, and it should be good. And I thought I had one more thing. I did. A little bit of sage. That's a personal. I may have gotten these wrong. It's not going to screw it up. I'm just going to add a little bit of that. And now salt. Oh my goodness. Once you get those Italian seasonings cooking and mixed in, they really get fragrant and it smells absolutely delicious. I can't wait to eat dinner. I'm also pretty hungry right now, so that doesn't help. But it does smell absolutely amazing. We got that mixed in. We're going to stir our noodles. One of the things that you want to remember when you're cooking pasta is shortly after you throw your pasta into the water, you want to give it a little bit of a stir. The pasta will have a tendency to want to stick together as soon as it comes into contact with water, and just a little quick stir will help break everything apart, and then they'll start to cook as individual pieces instead of big clumps. Okay, pasta still has a little ways to go. So now what I'm aiming for here is that little bit of a crispy golden brown color on my ground beef, because that's just going to add some extra flavor. to the meat, which is going to come out beautifully. We're going to put all of our seasonings away because we're done. One trick to making sure you don't have a huge cleanup later on is to kind of clean as you go. I have these lulls, these dull moments in between stirring the pasta and stirring the ground beef where I can put things away or I can start prepping something else. I did empty my dishwasher before we started because I had a pile of dishes on the counter and I couldn't put my camera anywhere. Which was nice because now it's just going to make my job after dinner so much easier. So we've got our colander. I'm going to put that in the sink. Our pasta doesn't have too terribly much longer to go. Sorry, my cat. It smells good and he sees me talking, so he thinks that's an invitation for him. So let me go ahead and taste test this ground beef to see if it's got the flavor that we want. And you'll see that I used this spoon and threw it onto another spoon. That way I can keep testing with this one, but I don't have to keep getting a new utensil every time. That's perfect. Oh my goodness. I cannot wait to eat dinner. Okay. So our ground beef is cooked through. We got a little bit of browning on it. Okay, and our pasta has been boiling now for about 8 minutes. And the directions said 9 to 11. And just based off of the way that the pasta noodle looks, I like to judge it based off of the feel of the pasta in my hand and whether or not I can break it apart with my nail. It still has a little longer to go. Yeah. So I'll give it like another minute or two, and it should be at the perfect texture. Oh, my cat's upset. It's time for him to eat dinner. I did not realize that. He can wait a little bit longer. He's distracted by a bird. You can dice up peppers, some bell peppers. You can dice up, like I said, onions or garlic. I debated adding some crushed up kale to this, which once everything's all intermixed and warmed up, the kale kind of loses its flavor and it absorbs the flavor of the pasta sauce and you won't even know it's there. But it adds some more nutritional value to the dish, which is where I'm always trying to maximize the amount of nutrition that we absorb and we retain when I cook our meals. And that's one of the ways that I do it, is I just throw some kale or some spinach into our dish or some extra veggies, and most of the time you can't even tell that it's in there. So just a tip, but if you just want basic spaghetti, quick and easy, this is the way to do it. Okay, let's give the noodles another test. Ooh, they're way more pliable. Okay. Those are perfect. Absolutely delicious. The right texture and consistency. Now we're going to drain them out. One of the tricks that you want to remember here is as you're draining your pasta, reserve some of your water, because the pasta water will actually help the sauce that you're going to add to this adhere to the pasta itself. There's something in there, that interaction, just reserving a little bit of that pasta water is just going to help your spaghetti sauce adhere to the noodles a little bit better. All right, well, my noodles stayed in the pot, so I didn't really need the colander, and we were able to reserve just a little bit of the water, which is great. So now all we're going to do, friends, is we're going to throw some of this ground beef. We're going to throw this ground beef right on into sauce, right? So I'll let this hover for just a little bit, and I'll get this mixing up. We dripped a little bit. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this package of pasta, of spaghetti noodles that I used, it's just my local grocery store brand, and I only actually used half of the box. I used the other half the last time I made spaghetti, and it made enough for us to have about 2 meals each, so there's 4 meals for the 2 of us. Okay, that should be good. And that's all there is to it, friends. That took a total of probably 15-20 minutes to whip this up all together. It's a quick and easy meal. Doesn't take a lot of effort, doesn't take a lot of thought. Makes great leftovers, so always make just a little bit extra for yourself. That's it. You can top it with Parmesan cheese if you like. You can top it with anything else that suits your fancy. We like olives and Parmesan cheese. We're just a little bit strange. So, just a quick and easy meal if you ever need anything to quickly go to whip something up because you need something easy. Spaghetti is the way to go. If you choose to stick around, we're going to be covering a bunch of other basic, simple meals to help you survive, to help you thrive, to get you through. Ordering out is expensive, and if you're on a budget, cooking from home is really going to help you and save you money. So that's it for today. Keep an eye out for more to come, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.